Okay, hi there. This is Miss Praviti. Just making another quick little video to review before we take our quiz for 10.5 or 10.6, or if we're going to make corrections and do a retake. So I'm just looking back at our practice quiz that's in Google Classroom. Um, and so that is under today's date, which is Tuesday, March 23rd. And then I also want to reference our practice sheet we did as a warm up. This is on Google Classroom, and we should have taken these notes together as a class. So if you don't have these written down and you did not do that, they are up there for you on Google Classroom, but this is what we did as a class today, and these are just I just printed these out to use. And you should also have your 10.5, 10.6 note sheet. It's a front and back sheet that we did last Tuesday, March 16th. Those are where review videos can also be found. But just using this sheet that we did as a warm up, and then my other note sheet that I have that off to the side. We're gonna go ahead and do the practice quiz together because the quiz is actually almost exactly like this. So let's look at the first part. We want to read the question carefully. So what this says is tell whether the number is written in scientific notation. So this is going to be a yes or a no answer. So the things that we look at, as it said on our note sheet, we have to make sure that our factor, that's the number out in front of the 10, the factor needs to be between the absolute value of 1 through 10, which just means it can be -1, -2, -3, all the way up to -10, or it can be +1 through 10. So absolute value just means a positive or negative factor. And then we also just need to make sure we talked about the base. That's the where it's times 10 to some power. So the base always has to be 10. Those are the two things we look at whether or not to say yes or no. So looking at number 1, we're not solving this. We're just telling yes or no whether it's in scientific notation. So number 1, I'm going to look at the factor, 5.4. Is that between 1 and 10? Yes, it is. Oops, sorry about that. Gave out for a second. So yes, it is. And then we are going to look at the base. Is that times 10? So that's also a yes. So this means yes, it's in scientific notation. We don't really need to explain on this part. I'm not going to worry about that for the quiz. Number 2, is this in scientific notation? So again, we're looking at yes or no. So first I'm going to look at my factors, 0.67. So that's a decimal. Is that between 1 and 10? The answer to that is no. So automatically right there, this means this is no. It is not in scientific notation. So for the first part of our practice quiz and the first part of your regular quiz, it's going to be very similar. This might be a point where you want to pause the video and now do the first few questions on the actual quiz. They're exactly the same. All right, so let's go to the next section. So when we have something in scientific notation and we're going to standard form, we're going to look at the exponents first. So up here, this is going to tell us which way we're going, what kind of number we want. And the notes we had taken before, remember, when we have, just looking at just my note sheet here, that you can print out from a Google Classroom or you've taken these yourself. A positive exponent means we want a larger number, or a larger number means the exponent's positive. It goes both ways. So looking at this, it's a positive exponent. So that means we're going to want a larger number, meaning larger than 1. The number has to get bigger, not smaller. So when we look at 5.4, and I always rewrite it down here so I can put my little, I call them swoops in to figure out I've got to move 8 spots to make this bigger. So the only thing that makes sense to make 5.4 bigger, I have to go this way over here to the right, or the blue way. Sometimes we were putting in arrows and it could be do you go the pink way or do you go the blue way? And we know we have to go this way 8 times. So this is 1 swoop, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then what I do is fill the remainder of them that don't already have a number with a 0. This 8 doesn't tell us how many zeros we have. It tells us how many we have to like swoop or move over. So I'm in between the 5 and the 4. So going from the here, that is 1. It counts. And then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So then I just rewrite my number so that it looks neater. And we have, that's our final number. You can go back. I said if you start at the back, every 3 get a comma. Sometimes it's easier. And then that's our final answer. So we got a bigger number. I changed number 4 on the practice quiz just to be a little bit nicer because I put a mean number on there where you need it's like 20 some zeros. So I'm just changing this just for the video. But again, we start with a positive exponent, okay? A positive exponent. And this is already on our note sheet. This should be on the note sheet, either you printed or that you took with us. A positive exponent means we need a larger number, or vice versa. We start with a larger number and we do a positive exponent. But for this case, we need a larger number, so the number needs to get larger. So if I rewrite my number down here, so I'll start with the 4.905, and I like to write it just a little bit bigger. And then I know, since it's positive, I need to go this way to make it a bigger number. I want to go from 4 to eventually in the thousands. We need to go that way to make it a bigger number. So I'm going to go 9 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I fill all the rest of my swoops that are empty with zeros. Some of them were already filled with the numbers, and then I just rewrite it. I've moved my decimal point all the way to the end. Oops, 4905. And then I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros. And then I go back in every 3, and I write my number. There's my big giant number. So now would be a time where you would pause the video, because Target 2 on the quiz, the next 4 problems are all taking numbers in scientific notation and we're putting them into standard form. That's what's happening here. So I would pause the video and do this part of the real quiz, the next 4 problems. Okay, now we are on our last part. Okay, so for our last part, I am gonna just make myself some more room. This is our last 4 questions on our quiz. So again, looking at our note sheet, this is just the one that we did as a warm-up today. You could look at your other one. Again, just refresher. If we have a positive exponent, we want a larger number. Or if the number is larger to start with, we make sure our exponent's positive. If our number is small to begin with, meaning smaller than 1, or as a decimal, like 0.0 something, our exponent is going to be negative. So those are the notes. It should be on all of our note sheets, but just using this one I find is helpful. So the last part of our quiz is we have to write it in scientific notation. This one I find is a little bit easier because you know the format is going to be a factor times 10, and then to some power. The power is going to be how many times we move, and then we just have to decide, is the power or exponent, is it positive or negative? And we already know, I'm going to rewrite it, we already know that a larger number equals a positive exponent. I'm just rewriting it. You know me, I write things a bunch of times so that it's all over my paper and my notes, and I encourage you guys to do the same thing. If it's a smaller or a decimal number, so meaning it's smaller than 1, that means we get a negative exponent. Okay? So we know that part. So let's look at this one. And one of the decimals is already in there. It's really nice for us. And I'm going to go ahead and put our little cheat sheet there. We know it's something times 10. And then right away, I know this is a smaller number to begin with, right? It's in decimal form. So my exponent is negative. So I'm going to go ahead and put the negative sign up there already because I know that that's going to be negative. So what I'm going to do in a different color is I'm going to move and see where would I put my next decimal. So I need to get my factor between 1 and 10, right? Our factor is what goes here. So if I move my decimal point, I can see I would want it between the 2 and the 5. I'd want it to say 2.56. That is the only number that would be between 1 and 10. If I made it after the 5, it'd be 25.6, and that's too big. We need our factor to be between 1 and 10. So I put the other one in there, and then I just have to count how many times did I move from the decimal that was there to the decimal I want there. So I moved 1, 2. So it's -2 because we started with a smaller number. So that is it for this. Again, so when we start with a smaller number, smaller than 1, we have a negative exponent. We have to make sure we put in another decimal point so that our factor, the number out front, is between 1 and 10. So now look at number 6. This is a larger number, so we know our exponent is going to be a positive number. It just starts as a bigger number. The other thing is with a very large number, we know we don't usually write the decimal point, but it's right here at the end. If it was money, we would write 0.00. But that one's there, so that's the one that's already there. We just don't write it. So now I need to think to myself, where do I want to put the next decimal point so that it's a factor between 1 and 10? So if I look back and I go here, well, I don't want to put it between the 5 and the 8 because I'd have 225. So if I go back, I know it has to be right here. I need it to be 2.258. That's the only thing that makes sense. If I put it 1 over, it'd be 22. So this factor has to be between 1 and 10. So it's 2.258 times 10, and then I just count how many I moved. So I'm moving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's a positive, remember? I moved 6, so it's positive because it started as a larger number. So now would be the time you would pause the video and you would do your last 4 problems on the real quiz because they're just like this. So I want you to use this video if you need to rewatch it and do it on every single problem. I'd like you to do that so that you can get a good grade on this, and feel free to use any of your notes and rewatch as many times as needed. You can also go back to Tuesday, the 16th, that's last week, and I also have the regular video lessons with the notes on there. Okay, so hopefully this helps you, and good luck.